Something that really stood out to me as far as topics have gone in this class is the topic of climate change and human-induced climate change more specifically. That's why I chose the book I did for my research paper that will be discussed in a more detailed manner later on. Climate's always been something that's interested people and interested me. It allows people to plan their day, enjoy the outdoors, and have a nice relaxing day. If the climate gets ruined, so will we. Ultimately, the fate of our own existence rests in our own hands. This is what so interests me when on the topic of environmental science. While this class, while this does not seem like a crazy idea, one of the activities that were conducted um, during a lab that we had to do for this class was to make um, a well of several different materials, such as fine sand, medium grit sand, and gravel. And we poured it over the top to see what kind of pollution would come from this. If it would pollute the water in the well, or if it would simply stay on the other side. And something that was really interesting to me was that this water did not pollute the rest of the well water. Rather, it stayed clean and was filtered, it seemed like, through the groundwater that was next to it. Some of the same lab assignment was to make a well where we used a interesting filtration system that moved water through the top and through different grits of sand and gravel, and that just showed even more how well the pollution can be filtered out by the land itself. Um, Pollution has caused many different issues all over the world, from chemical pollutants like those in the atmosphere to material and physical pollutants, plastics and garbage. If someone were to think right now how much plastic they were surrounded by at any given time, they would most likely say a lot. Plastic is vital in the world's production techniques. Many plastic products are single-use items that were designed to be thrown out, like water bottles or takeout containers. However, if these are not disposed of correctly or recycled, they can end up in the ocean or in many other places. While driving, you can take note of all the garbage that has been thrown out onto the side of the road. Pollution's not good, and it's not good for the environment and the species of animals we share this world with. Several types of animals have already become susceptible to these plastics and pollutants. This overpollution of the world will soon catch up with the human population, will end up being our own demise. Something that this class demonstrated was the tragedy of the commons. What right do we have to the land, water, air, etc.? And to what extent is each person, the owner of said land, able to pollute that land or resource? According to NASA's climatologist, quote, multiple studies published in peer-reviewed scientific journals show that 97% or more of actively publishing climate scientists agree that climate warning trends over the past century are extremely likely due to human activities. In addition, most of the leading scientific organizations worldwide have issued public statements endorsing this position. End quote. So this has not only been published by the USA affiliated organization, but the same story has been published in many different articles across the world and been verified by many different studies and external organizations, such as the American Meteorological Society, the World Meteorological Organization, and even the Chinese Academy of Sciences. All these sources that were stated also have a similar philosophical statement about climate change. Their core belief is that humans are the root of this irreversible change. As I talked about earlier, I chose the book Our Final Warning, 6 Degrees of Climate Emergency by Mike Linus to do my research on. This book offers a unique and seemingly doomful reading experience as it presents this hard-to-stomach information on the fate of our world. The book was not only eye-opening, but also defined a new era of climate crisis. In the 70s, there was movements to protect the Earth and its inhabitants. This has now since been renewed by a much larger movement, not only by the youth of the United States, but also the entire world. Linus's book is organized in a unique way. It categorizes each of its topics as sections, and those sections are organized by 1 degree of increasing global temperature. What would happen at each degree of warming? This was a neat way of organizing the book. It made sense to the reader and ultimately helped to prove his point, which was less about the horrible things that can happen, but more what we can do to help and prevent these things from getting this far. This helps the reader understand the depth at which Linus had gone to do his own research and rely on the studies and data that he trusts. On the front of global warming, something that had never really been expressed is the average water temperature could possibly rise to unbelievable levels. According to NASA's compiling of many different sources and their proofing of many scientific data points, quote, sea level rise will continue past 2100, the year 2100, because the oceans take a very long time to respond to warmer conditions at the Earth's surface. Ocean waters will therefore continue to warm, and sea levels will continue to rise for many centuries, at equal rates or higher than those of the current century, end quote. This quote essentially says that if things are going to continue the way they are, the oceans will rise and expand to possibly flood parts of the land, especially those areas prone to flooding, or those that are below the water table. The following quote comes from the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, and more specifically comes from some of the ideas of their main philosophy. Quote, warming of the climate system is unequivocal, and since the 1950s, many of the observed changes are unprecedented over decades to millennia. The atmosphere and ocean have warmed, and the amounts of snow and ice have diminished, and the sea level has risen. This next quote also puts into context how this organization feels about climate change and what impact humans have had on their own future. Quote, human influence on the climate system is clear, and recent anthropogenic emissions of greenhouse gases are the highest in history. Recent climate changes have had widespread effects on human and natural systems. All in all, why would anyone care about our environment? Someone living in south central Wisconsin may think that the weather around here is just fine. However, there's a large difference between weather and climate. According to the USGS, the United States Geographical Survey, they made a statement on the differences between the weather and climate. Weather refers to short-term atmospheric conditions, while climate is the weather of a specific region averaged over a long period of time. Climate change refers to long-term changes. In the end, the world is doomed should we not act. However, at this rate, the damage has been done. There are only ways to lessen the side effects of this crisis. Waters are warming, Earth is heating. Ultimately, we must make conscious decisions each day to be better. More effort must be given, and more countries and people need to get on board. The only way out of this crisis is to attempt to tend to our wounds, so to speak. There is much work to be done. Environment matters because people matter, animals matter as well, plants and organisms. Everything on this planet matters, and there are active continents, people, and nations that are willing to put that all in jeopardy just for the sake of a few dollars more profit. The mentality of, if it goes away from my sight, it won't hurt anything, is what got the world into this mess to begin with, starting all the way back with the Industrial Revolution. Either humans figure out how to safely live on other planets, clean up this one, or continue with life as it is, the world will still live on. It'll be the humans that are not able to live here anymore. All in all, the research that I did was based off of some research done by other people. I looked at their sources, and I also compiled some of their findings into more digestible, all in all, more reasonable to read than reading, several people's own sources. So this is going to be a interesting topic over the next several hundred years, to whether we're here for several hundred years or not. This will continue to be a topic, and I hope that some of the sources, if you give them a listen or give them a look over, they will help persuade you into making some better decisions as far as plastic goes. So the pollutants in this world are insane, and the amount of it is continuing to increase almost double every day. So think about that the next time that you pick up or you see garbage on the side of the road. Maybe pick it up, and we can help clean up not only our local communities, we can also protect the environment from pollutants for the other species and other animals that inhabit the same area of land, the same waters, and the same air that we do. We're not the only ones, even though we act like it sometimes. So, thank you for listening, and I hope you enjoyed.